Hello everyone. My name is Hitomi Yoshio. I'm an associate professor of Japanese literature at Waseda University. I'm one of the core faculty members of a new graduate program in global Japanese studies called Global-J. My specialty is in modern and contemporary Japanese literature, gender studies, and literary translation. One of the goals of Waseda's Global Studies unit is to bring both research and education to the global stage, open to students and scholars from all over the world. So today, I'm going to introduce the Waseda International House of Literature, which is a model example of this goal. The International House of Literature opened its doors to the public in October 2021 as a literary resource center and cultural exchange facility. Since its opening, the center has hosted readings and conversations with contemporary authors, research reading groups, and talks by scholars in various fields such as literature, music, digital technology, and architecture. The center is also known as Haruki Murakami Library because it contains a variety of items and works donated by Murakami himself, including first editions of his novels, overseas editions of Murakami's works in translation, books by foreign authors translated into Japanese by Murakami, and his collection of vinyl records. The library also features a replica of the author's study and various pieces of furniture from the bar Peter Cat, which he used to run with his wife. There's even an audio room where visitors can relax and read and listen to music from extensive audio collection, and a student-run cafe if you want a cup of coffee. The Waseda International House of Literature is definitely a tribute to Murakami, but it also goes beyond that. Designed by the world-renowned architect Kengo Kuma, the library houses literature from around the world and provides research spaces for students and scholars in a stylish and welcoming space. In the arched bookshelves of the central staircase, which is the signature view of the library, you can pick up the books and immerse yourself into the world of literature. The books are organized in an interesting way, not by author or country or language, but by theme. So you have themes like crossing borders, writing and its creations, the ordinary and the extraordinary, stories of families, gender, youth, and so on. The way the Waseda International House of Literature showcases the literary works and creates a space that shapes their way of reading resonates with the goals of our graduate program, Global-J. On the one hand, we encourage students to read and immerse themselves in the literary works in their local and regional contexts, teasing out the cultural and material references and interpretations. At the same time, especially in this age of global media, international travel, and more digital technology, it becomes meaningful to think beyond the borders of the nation. Literature has always existed both within and beyond the nation, but these days, that border is becoming more and more arbitrary. Authors are not necessarily writing within the national framework or in the national literary tradition or language, and readers are also reading with transnational concerns. So here you have Mieko Kawakami next to Alice Munro, Virginia Woolf, and other Korean women writers. Here you can encounter works across geographical space and time and experience how they resonate with one another, producing new meanings and interpretations. I hope you can come visit us at Waseda and immerse yourself in the books and in the beautiful space in the International House of Literature.
Hello everyone, I am Pau Pitarch. I'm Associate Professor of Japanese Literature at Waseda University and one of the core faculty members of the new graduate program, Global-J. My research focuses on early 20th century Japanese fiction and criticism. At Global-J, we want to foster an interdisciplinary approach that places studies of Japanese culture within the global conversation of the humanities. This is not simply a question of using English to publish the results of our work, but of trying to frame our questions in a way that's not bound by the perspective of national history. One way we try to achieve this is by paying attention to the original sources. I'm going to show you some copies of a magazine called Shinseinen from the Taisho and early Showa eras. Shinseinen started as a magazine of adventure and military fiction, but soon became focused on detective fiction, and it's actually one of the main sources for the development of the genre in Japan. It might seem odd to some that we use or that we pay attention to mystery and detective fiction at the university, but it was a very important genre, not only to understand how certain literary techniques were developed, but also because it provided a fertile ground to discuss social and cultural issues. One area that combines both of these concerns is the representation of the human psyche. Detective fiction was a space for authors to explore both how to use language to represent particular mental states and also to play with ideas that they had learned from contemporary psychology and criminology. A particularly interesting example here is a very famous author called Edogawa Rampo. Rampo published in Shinseinen his early stories, like his very first story, Nisendoka, the 2-cent copper coin, and other famous stories like The Murder at D Hill or The Psychological Experiment. And especially in these later works, Rampo shows strong familiarity with the developments of contemporary psychology and uses those as central parts of his plots. I'm not going to spoil the stories for you. I think they're over 100 years old, but they have held up quite well, so I think you should read them. But I'll just say that the solutions to Rampo's mysteries often play both on his knowledge of psychological techniques and also certain skepticism about the potential for rationality to explain everything without recourse to the more abnormal side of the human psyche. So Rampo's works will make little sense if one takes them either just as mere copies of Western originals or as a purely Japanese phenomenon. They can only be enjoyed once one is aware of Rampo's connections with the genre at a global scale and the way he sought to have some of its basic tenets subverted. It's only an approach that placed them in a productive dialogue with works both within and outside of Japan that can show the full richness of his works.